I'm not gonna lie, Siluria's bow has always been an amazing weapon. It has always been quite strong, I should like to say, and it didn't actually need a buff. That being said, that being the case, with patch 107, it is an undeniable truth that the weapon has been more powerful than it used to be. It really is damn gorgeous now. What is up, you damn gorgeous, beautiful gamers? Welcome back to Role-Playing Games. This is Mariel Corner in the internet, where we like to discuss about RPGs. If you like the content, if you like to have these conversations with Mariel James, I would very much like to invite you, like always, to hit the like button, because it really helps me like you have no idea. That being said, let's get right into the matter. Let's see first, what is it that they did to this weapon? First and foremost, this thing can now pierce through enemies. You can cast that thing, but also the poise increment, the poise increase that you have while casting the Ash of War on a weapon, it's actually quite amazing. Let's do remember again that poison itself has already been increased in patch 107, so you generally, ideally have more poise. But while casting this thing, the amount of poise that you have, the amount of hits that you can take while casting this thing, it's really disgusting. And as you can see, I can take as many hits as I can. Well, no one's hitting me right now, but even then, when they were able, they landed 3 hits on me right there. And while they are not that huge of poise damaging enemies, needless to say, you are not going to get interrupted while casting this thing. Now, the other thing that they did is that they added extra damage to the base part of the weapon. So while you're casting Siluria's Woe, you will also be dealing damage with the base blade of the weapon. So that is amazing as well. The other thing that they did is, like I mentioned, it has more attack power. That's something that I didn't mention. So potentially, if you build this character properly, like I'm going to show you right now in a couple of moments, if you properly build this character, you can end up dealing 5k damage. Yes, you heard me right, 5k damage with this weapon in some specific certain situations. A downside of the weapon has to be said that it divides the damage. There are many wholly resistant enemies in the game, especially the final boss of the game. So yeah, it's not going to be effective with the final boss of the game, as effective with the final boss of the game. But you do have to have in mind that you are a caster. Now, I wouldn't say that I would like to use spells with this build, because this is basically to be able to use Siluria's Woe on itself, Siluria's Tree on itself. But you do need to have in mind as well that you have a different spells at your command that you can definitely use, because you have the soft cap for Fate. So it doesn't necessarily has to be, for example, a one school of spells, but if you are fighting against enemies that are resistant to holy damage, you have the Black Blade right here, which is going to take care of them easily, no problemo. Also, you do have a bunch of different spells right here that you will be getting the most out of them, all of them, because again, you have 80 Fade. But the main focus of the build, as always, is going to be the usage of Ash of War of the weapon. One thing, amazing cool thing about this weapon is that you can also use it from behind a shield. If you pair your shield, I did not have it right here at the moment, but if you pair your shield with Barricade Shield that has also been buffed as well, you have a very powerful weapon that has a huge, amazing damage on the Ash of War, but you also have the Barricade Shield, and you can poke from behind the shield. So all in all, you have distance, you have range, you have protection. Siluria's Woe, it's really damn amazing now, and I would say that it's in the S tier of the most broken weapons that you can find in the game right now. There are some weapons that are not that amazing. Before anyone comes and tell me that everything is broken in this game, it's not. It's a couple. Right now we're focusing on the main weapons that are broken, and this is one of them. So now let's talk about a build that you can possibly do with this thing. It is a very stat hungry build, especially because Siluria's woe, Siluria's tree, requires for you to have 27 strength, and that is a requirement. For you to be able to use the weapon, you do need that strength. We are wasting somewhat of our points right there because this is a soft cap faithful build, but not that much, because at the end of the day, Siluria's tree, it does has that B scaling on strength. It has a nice raw damage on strength, so your points that you place in there just for the requirement of the weapon are not going to waste. They're actually going to be adding damage, natural damage to the weapon. With this build, as you have it right here, it's going to have 700 damage, which is not that bad for a spear. At the end of the day, it is a one-handed weapon that you are going to be using from behind a shield, and at the end of the day, you can deal potentially 5k damage to specific certain enemies in specific certain situations, and if you have certain specific buffs on you as well. The downside of the weapon as well is that it is very hungry on FP. It does requires a whole lot of usage of FP, so you do need to have a stat hungry build right here. Usually when I make a build, I like to have my builds on 60 bigger, because that is the soft cap for bigger. I like to be healthy. And we're here focusing on 40 because, yeah, we need to get those extra points into mind. So that is one thing that you need to have in mind. If you actually level up a little bit more than 150, if you want to go higher, a nice idea would be to place a little bit more points into strength and mind, as well as bigger. It is up to your personal preference, but this right here can carry you easily, no problem, throughout all of the stages of a new game plus. Now, let's talk about the talismans that we can use with this build. At this point, with the stamina that I am showing you right now, I am using the 3 Sentinel armor, the Siluria's tree, the Dorito shield, but I do need to have my great jar arsenal. That is something that I always like to have. If you want to use lighter gear, if you want to use lighter armor, then you can definitely do so, to play around and to toy around with a different specific choice in here, because we do have different specific choices that we want to take for the talismans. Strongly advise Godfrey icon. Siluria's Woe, it's a charge animation Ash of War, so it increases its damage by the Godfrey icon. Shadow of Alexander, one of our main focuses in this build is going to be precisely that, the use of a National Wall. That being the case, Shadow of Alexander is going to be working beside Godfrey icon to increase that damage, skyrocket that damage, because it naturally increases the damage by percentage, and since this is a highly damaging weapon, if you combine these two, it's deadly. Then the Sacred Scorpion Charm. We are focusing our holy damage, so the more damage that we can get from that holy damage, it's going to be amazing. Siluria's Woe and Siluria's Tree both are going to be benefiting from the usage of that increase in holy damage. You do need to have in mind as well that since you are a focused build on Fade, you also need to use Golden Bow. Do remember that Golden Bow, as you will, I hope that you will be able to see right here, Golden Bow is going to increase the base damage of the Ash of War. Right there we have 3300, and then let's buff up with our Golden Bow. Let's see how much do we get. Usually the health bar of the enemies it's an issue as well. It shouldn't be that higher because of that. But yeah, as you can see right here, I was able to get 500 by using Golden Bow. That is not to say as well that we do have to have in consideration our next thing, which is going to be our Flask of Wonders Physique. The Flask of Wonders Physique that we're going to be using with this build is going to be the Sacred one. and that is going to increase our damage as well on this thing, because this is sacred damage. Ideally, what you want to do is increase your holy damage, have golden bow at all times, use your Godfrey icon, use your sacred scorpion charm, and use the shout of Alexander. I would advise as well that maybe this one, the clarifying horn charm, or any talisman that can help you with the usage of FP, it's more than welcome, because this is a very hungry build when it comes to FP. You are a caster, and you are going to be using Siluria's Woe as the main means of damage. While you're exploring the world, you're usually going to be using this thing right here. So, while you're fighting basic enemies, you do have your barricade shield for you to never be hit from the enemies. So that is one amazing thing to have as well. But when you're fighting against bosses, you do want to use the Ash of War of the weapon. Also, one thing to have in mind, one thing that we should not forget, is that the damage on the Ash of War, it's so high that it really, bosses shouldn't last that long against you. So you shouldn't be worried too much about FP. You only need to worry about FP if you're wasting more than you can kill. Siluria's Woe is going to kill things fast, so my advice is for you to have your blue flask of cerulean tears, this one, 2 or 3, and that's it. Anyways, that being said, if you like the content, a like on the video, super appreciated, and a subscription to the channel as well. Remember that no one told you that you're a gorgeous, beautiful person. You are a gorgeous, beautiful person. Have a beautiful day, and I'll be seeing you goddamn gorgeous, beautiful people in the next one. Goodbye.